Drain the swamp. This thing seriously needs to be drained. Assuming that this poll is legitimate, which, you know, you know how polling is. But yeah, no, I did. It's been over a week since I did the last video. I probably should do more of these. There's no probably about it. I should do more. But anyway, shout out to the Daily Signal and shout out to Jack Posobiec because, of course, he's the one who shared the story. He's like the best journalist in the world. I'm a big fan of his. He's the one who put out this, who he tweeted this article and, got me fired up to make another video, even though it's been a week since I made one. Over a week. It's been like 10 days, 11 days, something like that. Almost 2 weeks, probably. But yeah, no, seriously, we need to drain the swamp, assuming that this poll is legitimate. But anyway, like, shout out to the Daily Signal. Shout out to Tyler O'Neill. Yeah. So hold on, sorry, looking at something. Okay, yeah. This article is actually from today. So all right. A surprising number of federal employees admit they're gearing up to act like a deep state, opposing the incoming second administration of Trump. Most Americans, even many of the elites who voted for Vice President Kamala Harris, are willing to support Trump's administration, according to an RMG research survey commissioned by the Napolitan Institute. Yet 42% of federal government managers who work in Washington, D.C. swamp intend to work against the administration. RMG Research conducted 3 surveys in mid-December to study 3 different segments of the population. The polling firm focused on what it calls the elite 1%, who have postgraduate degrees, earn more than $150,000 annually, and live in densely populated areas. Main Street Americans, who meet none of these 3 criteria and who represent between 70 and 75% of the U.S. population, and federal government managers, federal employees, Main Street Americans who meet none of these 3 criteria and who represent between 70 and 75% of the U.S. population, and federal managers, federal employees who live in the national capital region around Washington and earn at least $75,000 annually. Main Street Americans tend to have less faith in government and want more freedom for Americans, while elite 1%ers tend to have more faith in government and say Americans have too much freedom. Main Street Americans tend to look down on the idea of a deep state opposing the people's elected president. Of course they would, because they know it's bad for them. And they don't want us to have what we want. They don't want us to bring the country back to a place where, things were just better for all Americans. They want to keep it in a position where they hold all the levers of power, because these people are narcissists. They think they're the only ones who are qualified to lead when, they're not. People are perfectly capable of leading their own lives. We don't need, Big Daddy government to hold our hand and tell us, like, what to do and how to think, and, pretty bog standard kind of like small L libertarian kind of talking point, right? The poll found that many Americans are willing to support the new administration, even among the elites and even among those who voted for Harris. The survey asked, quote, looking ahead to the next 4 years, will your political efforts be primarily to support the Trump administration or resist the Trump administration? Most Main Street Americans, 59%, said they would support the new administration, while only 28% said they would resist it. Even the elite 1% proved more likely to say they would support 48% than resist 39% the administration. Even some of those who said they voted for Harris in November said they would support the new administration. 12% of Harris voters said they will work to at least somewhat support the new administration. On election day, 64% of the elite 1% voted for Harris, while only 34% voted for Trump. Yet among the elite 1% who voted for Harris, a quarter, 26%, said they are working to support the new administration. Federal government managers, however, proved evenly split, with only 44% saying they would support the administration and 42% saying they would resist it. Yep, and then here is the, Here's the breakdown of, feel free to pause and zoom in and, whatever. This is the, here, there. Feel free to pause the video here and you can look at the numbers for yourself. Okay. Unsurprisingly, federal government managers proved more gung-ho about resistance when they identified as Democrats. While the vast majority of government employees who identify as Republicans plan to support the administration, 89% somewhat support or strongly support. Almost three-quarters of Democrat bureaucrats plan to resist. 73% somewhat resist or strongly resist. More than half of Republican managers, 52%, said they would strongly support the administration, while 40% of Democrats said they will strongly resist it. A quarter of all managers, 26%, whether Democrat or Republican, plan to strongly support the administration, and only slightly smaller portion, 23%, say they will strongly resist it. The survey also asked federal government managers what they would do if Trump gave them a lawful order that they considered to be bad policy. Only 17% of Democrat managers who voted for Harris would follow Trump's orders. 3 times as many, 64%, said they would ignore the order and do what they thought was best. This amounts to a declaration that they plan to act like a deep state opposing the people's elected president. Voters did not look kindly on the idea of bureaucrats refusing to allow orders, however. More than half, 54% of Main Street voters, said that a bureaucrat who refuses to follow a lawful order from the president should be fired, and even most of the elite 1%, 52%, agreed. Most Republican managers, 74%, say a bureaucrat should be fired for refusing a presidential order, while 23% of Democrat managers agree. So let me go back to this is what I would do. I'm sure they could do it. But if I was Trump, I would use the FBI or the CIA or so probably not them, because of their track record of working against him in the past. But I don't know, I would find the best people, and I would try to get the name of every single registered government employee who took this poll. I mean, if it was an anonymous poll, that's probably, but who knows? But if it's not an anonymous poll, this is what I would do. I would find out, if I would find the people who took the poll, find out who answered that they would refuse to follow Trump's orders, and I would fire them all. All of them. Period. End of story. Another thing I think Trump should probably do, that I would do if I was Trump, is I would just fire. Day one, I would fire all federal employees who are registered Democrats, unless they can verify that they voted for Trump. That's what I would do. Did you vote for me? Then get the fuck out. Because the last time I was in this office, every single Democrat bureaucrat in this government, you all worked against me. Every single one of you. You didn't follow my orders. You lied to me about things. I would fire you all. This would eventually be applied to Republicans too. Obviously, I don't think it's just fire all Democrats because they're Democrats, but that's just a good place to start. And then you start, obviously, you treat the Republicans with a little bit more scrutiny. And so, okay, well, he's good. He follows orders. He doesn't. Out. Yes, you want to bring everyone together, but I think the Democrats have set the stage for this. They've kind of set the tone of the culture war that made it so working with them is essentially impossible. When asked about the most important political issue at the moment, federal government managers had different priorities than Main Street Americans and voters as a whole. The survey asked an open-ended question rather than giving a list. Main Street Americans proved more likely to mention some version of the economy, 40%, or immigration, 18%, as the top issues, as did voters overall. 39% chose the economy, 17% chose immigration. Fewer Main Street Americans named some version of America's politics, 4% on abortion, or 4% abortion, 6%, and then Trump, 4%. That's because Main Street Americans, the people who are on the ground, the middle and lower classes, the people who genuinely have to work every day for a living, they're much more concerned with the economy and immigration, which directly affects the economy. So, for instance, you've got a lot of far right wingers who are saying, who's like, this isn't about the economy. The economy doesn't make a country. No, I agree. An economy doesn't make a culture, but it's hard to have a consistent culture if your economy is in the toilet. Because if people are starving, then they're going to turn on the culture that led them to starvation, right? So you gotta try to find a balance between the two, and that's the reason why MAGA, contrary to popular belief, everybody says that immigration was the winning issue for MAGA in this cycle. No, the economy was. Immigration came second, a close second. I'm not saying it was like far down the list. It was a very close second, but it was second place. And again, as I said a second ago, immigration affects the economy, so the two issues are linked. You know, as I said before, I'm anti H-1B, just like everybody else is. We need to do away with the H-1B visa system because that is depressing American wages. It's making everything harder. You know, it's importing too much foreign labor, and it's being ridiculously abused. And it leads to chain migration and all kinds of other problems that we don't want. Even elite 1% seem closer to Main Street Americans than the federal government managers. The elite name the economy 26%, American politics 11%. These are the people whining that, oh, we're so divided right now. Yeah, and it's you fucking people's fault, you elites. It's your fault that we're so divided because you spent the last 15 years calling everybody below you on the economic totem pole stupid Nazis. And immigration, 7% is their top issues. While the economy proved the top issue for bureaucrats as well, only 18% chose it. Another 11% chose immigration. Many of the federal government managers selected issues that didn't register for most other Americans, such as guns and crime, 10%, climate change, 6%, education, 5%, equality, 5%, and cybersecurity, 5%. Cybersecurity should probably be a bit higher on the list, but it's such a, I mean, I'm probably not using the word esoteric correctly, so I'm not going to say that, I guess, even though I just did. But it seems too far afield. Like we have, like, you know, milk and eggs are so goddamn expensive. Nobody's thinking about cybersecurity and, you know, all of our cyber infrastructure being attacked by China and them stealing all of our intellectual property and, you know, all that shit. You know, like they don't think about that stuff. And it's a serious problem. It's something that I've been talking about. Like if you go back and listen to the very first episode of Clown War Chronicles that me and Liar ever did, one of the first stories we covered was a hacker group attacking American infrastructure. They weren't a political group. They literally said in the statement that they gave whenever they hacked the infrastructure that this isn't a political statement. We don't care about, it's not about the environment or about Trump. We just want money. Like, just pay us. We're just holding this thing for ransom because we know it's important. But still, cybersecurity should be a bit more higher on the list. Equality shouldn't even be a fuck. Like, who gives a shit about equality? Equality's stupid. Equality hasn't existed. It will never exist in humanity. No, humans are not equals. They're not. Some people are lesser than other people. Not just by a matter of like money they can accumulate or money that they're born into, but just some people are smarter, some people are stronger, some people are, you know, just better at certain skills or tasks. Some people are more morally superior. Like there are, and you know, there is no equality. Uh, while these uh, while these are important issues, and I'd like to see how many bureaucrats name some version of gun control and how many named increasing crime rates, they reveal a gap in priorities between bureaucrats and the people for whom they write the rules, which is the problem. Is that the management class, the bureaucrats, they are not us. They make more money than us. They're in higher tax brackets than us. They think they are smarter than us. They think they're more morally superior than us. They think they know better, and they think they can dictate to us what we can and can't do. RMG Research surveyed 1,000 registered voters. Oh, here, let me same thing here. You know, feel free to pause and you know, take a look at the numbers about who all voted for what in the poll. You know, who all said what was important. Now, obviously, economy and immigration came in first and second. RMG Research surveyed 1,000 registered voters between December 12th and December 13th. 1,000 elite 1% voters between December 9th and December 19th. Interesting. Why did they get 10 days to poll them, but it only took 1 day to poll? I mean, I guess probably because there's more of them, so it's easier to get the sample size, maybe. I don't know. And 500 federal government managers between December 9th and December 23rd. The margin of error for the elite 1% is plus or minus 3.1%. And the margin of error for federal government managers is plus or minus 4.4%. So what does this all mean? This survey confirms that bureaucrats in the administrative state are planning to oppose Trump from within, whether that means by refusing lawful orders or by engaging in political activism against Trump outside of work hours. Now, like I said, if you could get the names of everyone who participated in this survey, fire them all. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. If they said they're going to resist President Trump, get them the fuck out. We're draining the swamp anyway. That would be a good place to start. As good a place as any, really. Like, yeah, maybe firing all Democrats day one is probably it's not probably not a good idea. It's not a feasible solution. It's just something I would do. Trump is smarter than that. Trump's trying to be a bit of a bridge builder. He's trying to, build like, he spent his whole career working with both sides of the political aisle. He's always been. It's one of the things people used to say about him. Like they called him like a bit of a chameleon. They, that he. It's one of the reasons why it's kind of hard to pin down some of his stances on certain things because he's been so willing to, kind of play both sides. He's been consistent for like the last pretty much. Well, he's been consistent about a lot of things over his entire career. You just got to look him up. Like, for instance, he's always been anti-abortion. Like, he's never been pro-abortion. Like, people throw that at him like he used to be pro-abortion. Like, I've never seen a statement where he was pro-choice ever. Somebody, feel free to correct me. I've never seen one. This deep state phenomenon undermined the first Trump administration, and the president has pledged to fight it aggressively in the new one. My forthcoming book, the Woktopus, the dark money cabal manipulating the federal government, the Woktopus. Oh, octopus, got it. Reveals how major left-wing donors prop up a vast network of woke activist groups that staff and advise the federal government. This vast influence network held sway in the Biden administration, but will not end on January 20th. Congress can help Trump combat this deep state phenomenon by passing laws preventing public sector unions in the federal government restraining regulations and reining in agencies that have been insulated from Congress and the president, such as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Oh, that's the end of the article. Okay, good. All right. Well, yeah. So seriously, dig Donald Trump. Dig. This, it's only 1,000 people, but like I said, it'd be a good place to start. Every single person who participated in this poll and said they would resist you, fire them. Period. End of story. And then heavily consider the idea that you really do need to take a scythe. A fucking, a combine, whatever the hell, those big things they used to harvest corn and other crops, in large quantities. And just seriously, you need to like aim the eye of Sauron at the Democrat bureaucrats in the federal government, because it's safe to assume, I think, that the vast majority of them are just going to resist you every step of the way. Subscribe, like, share the video around, comment, algorithm. Do it.